Hey guys, it's DukeOnRed1 and welcome to how to build a medieval inn or tavern, whichever it is you need for your world. This will not be a specifically block by block tutorial, but I tried to demonstrate clearly how to reach this result and allowing room for you to expand on your own ideas. If you decide to follow this tutorial, I would love to see what you have come up with, so go ahead and tweet me pictures of your result over on my Twitter listed in the description, and I'll for sure enjoy seeing what you have done. I am using the Conquest Reforged mod for this tutorial, which adds thousands of new blocks into the game, making for a much more enjoyable experience. Well guys, without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. And there we have it. Simple, easy, and to the point. I'm just kidding, guys. Well, anyways, let's get right into this. So this right here is going to be the foundation for our tavern. As you can see, we're raising it up one block off the ground, and we're using the yellow and blue wool to represent sort of the spacing in between the blocks that you're going to need to do. It's a little bit uneven in such areas, so just follow that right there, and that's going to help you decide on what you're going to do. Lengthwise, that is 25 blocks long, and then widthwise, that is 13. So right here, we build up 5 blocks tall. That's going to go on all the vertical pillars all the way along, and then we're going to connect the tops all the way along. It's going to be pretty much a repetitive pattern. Next layer is going to be 6 blocks high. And then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to lift all of those pillars all the way up and around. And then that's going to set the stage. Now over here, I neglected to remember at the time I was building that this is going to be the place for the chimney. So you need to destroy those back logs. Again, this is the back of the building. The front of the building is the opposite side, of course. And then we go ahead and connect all of those tops except for where the chimney is. So now what we're going to do is add on the center support beam for the trusses. We're going to go 4 high. We're going to do that on both of the inside blocks, and then we're going to go ahead and go back to all the way to the back, and then that's where we're going to cross it. So down here, we're going to start working on the tavern keeper's house. This is where he's going to live. So you go pretty much from the middle of the building. A little bit of asymmetry going on there. You can just sort of see the where you need to be, and you follow exactly how that's supposed to be right there. Follow it straight out, same dimensions, same heights, and all that good stuff, so it's really no big deal. Then we're going to go ahead and figure out the floor right here. We're going to use the wood beams to connect all of the axes of the build, and then we're going to start working on the balcony. This is like sort of an area up above the main floor of the eating area and like the bar and such. This is where more people can sit, and then this just sort of like adds a little bit of extra atmosphere to the inside of the tavern. Makes it a rather large hall, and it makes it pretty grand. So right here we're building the trusses. It's going to be 1 1 2 2, and that's going to represent the roof truss, and you're going to go straight in from the inside, and then we're going to start using other blocks like that, and then we're going to copy and paste pretty much those roof trusses all the way back to the back. Then again, we use more Tudor blocks to represent the end pieces, because this is the outside. You're going to be able to see those blocks at one point once we get into the main building section. On the tops, you're going to go ahead and connect all of these. All the tops is going to add a little bit of extra support, and it's going to make it look real nice. Also from the inside, I just, eventually that's going to be needed. On the outside of the Tavern Keeper's building, you're going to bring it out by 1 block. And that's just going to give it a little bit extra depth on the outside, so just keep that in mind. And again, we use the Tudor and birch blocks, and then copy and paste pretty much those trusses going all the way back. And the difference about this is we're going to go all the way to the other side as well, and then we're going to connect the tops again using the 2x beams at the top, and that's going to really again add support. So pretty much the roofs are leaning on each other, and that gives it a nice structural value. And then in the Tavern Keeper's home, we're going to go ahead and connect those wood beams. It's going to connect the floors and make that all look nice. So that is pretty much the idea of what the main structure of the tavern part of this building is going to look like. And it's pretty simple at this point, but I hope you guys were able to follow along with that. It's not really that difficult, and I would like to see maybe you guys can make a few little changes here and there and customize your tavern to be a little bit more interesting. So next we're going to be adding in some asymmetry to the frame by adding in a few little additions to the outside. This is going to be the front entrance leading into the main hall. So make sure you follow the horizontal lines. As long as you follow that, it's going to be absolutely perfect. It's kind of hard to not follow this because I've built this specifically in a way that you can just follow the lines and it should all work out really well. So we use stone bricks first because this is going to have a stone patio at the bottom. And then make sure that instead of going all the way to the top, make sure it's one block lower than the top horizontal support beam. That's going to make it so that we can have a softer slant roof there over that balcony area. This right here is going to be the entrance down into the cellars. So that comes 4 blocks out. So it makes it a little bit odd at this point. But again, we need that asymmetry so that we can do a little bit, we can add a proper door there without I'm making some issues with the stone and wood later on. You'll see why later in the video. So this right here, we're going to be working on the support for the cupola above. This is going to be, it looks like a tower more or less, but it's going to be what's called a cupola. It's pretty much an air vent to allow bad air out. So we're going to go 9 blocks high from those horizontal support beams. You want to make sure that you have the vertical pillars on all 4 corners, and then there you go. Alright, so next we're going to be working on the end section of our structure. You want to make sure that it comes 4 sections of 3 out, and then you want to have a 1-3-1 for the end. So what I want you to be aware of is that this building is completely separate of the tavern itself. As you can see, it starts on its own block on the outside of the tavern. So be sure you keep that in mind, that you don't build it straight into the tavern. In this case, you could technically just go ahead and build this completely separate of the tavern, or maybe you could just build the tavern by itself and follow the video in conjunction with that. So this we're going to build 4 high, and then that's going to set the first layer. Make sure that it's 1 block lower than the next level of the tavern itself. As you can see, it's just 1 block lower. This right here is going to be the second level. Again, you build 4 high, and it's going to be pretty much a duplicate of the layer below, except you build that beam over where the fireplace is in the corner. As you can see, that big open spot where there's not the 2 connecting beams. So now we're going to build 5 high, and then that's going to set the next level, and this is going to be the visible level, because the other 2 levels are going to be pretty much behind either a roof or behind the porch, etc. So we're going to be using the Tudor and also birchwood on the ends here, because this is what you're going to see later on in the video, whereas in the inside, this is the support trusses for the interiors, so you're not going to see those. Make sure that you connect the tops with a 2x support beam, and then we're going to go down low and we're going to start working on the porch / extension around the outside. Make sure that it's 2 blocks. There's a 2 block gap all the way around. So technically each of these are 3 blocks out, but there's a 2 block gap in between. So be sure that you keep that in mind. And we're going to go ahead and connect all those blocks. And then around here on the back, we're going to dig into the side, because again, we got to make sure that we have room for that chimney. So as you can see, we dug out that 1 beam so that there's plenty of room for that chimney there. So next we're going to be building up this straight to the next level of the end portion. As you can see, it's pretty much symmetrical. There's really no complication to this. It's just build up and connect with the beams, and it really looks pretty good in the end. So make sure you follow that, and you'll see what that turns out later on. But anyways, that is the main structure of the end, and let's go ahead and lead on to the next portion of the video. Alright, so next we're going to be adding on a few little additions around the end. That's going to add in some asymmetrical and depth value to the outside of this build. It's going to really bring it all together, just like we had done on the tavern, the tavern section of the structure earlier on in the video. So again, you just want to follow the horizontal lines, and it's pretty much going to be exactly like that. Like I had said before in the video, I've made this specifically so you can just follow lines, and it's just as simple as that. Just following the lines, and then you're going to eventually end up with pretty much exactly what we have here. So on the end of the end building at this point, we're going to be building a gable. It adds in a little bit of depth Otherwise, it would be really flat there later on in the video. Again, you're going to find out that that looks quite nice. Here on the front of the building, on the entrance side, we're going to be adding in another entrance for the inn. So that's kind of like a place where the people can just leave through if they don't want to go through the tavern to avoid all the hubbub of activity there. We add in a porch there on the top, and then down here we're adding in 4 support beams because that's going to be, again, another porch there on the front, and that's going to be like where they can just sort of sit down and enjoy a drink or two, things like that. So you just want to add in little details and depth values around. We have now finished the framing for the structures, so now we can start adding in the extra things. So one thing we're going to be adding in, I think that's probably the most important at this point, is adding in the entrance into the cellars. This is where they would bring all the food and stuff down, like, carts could back up to here, and then they would bring down the food or barrels of mead, such like that, down into the underneath the tavern section of the building here. So that's pretty important. So make sure you build it down. Remember that section that I said was kind of odd, the one that comes 4 out. So that's where you're going to build that. And then all the way around between those wood sections, the wood verticals, you want to go ahead and build, you want to add in some cobble in between each of those spaces. That's going to represent where the cellar is going to be. It's going to be pretty much an L shape. So I used yellow wool to represent exactly how that's going to look. Now you guys can come up with whatever design you want. This is where you have your freedom. Of course, you have your freedom throughout the whole build, but for this, you can do whatever shape you want. You can follow whichever. Maybe you can bring it all the way into the inside, or like the place where they sleep, etc. You can do all kinds of things with this. I bring it 6 blocks down. Again, you can make it deeper or shallower if you so desire. I bring those vertical pillars all the way down to the ground. I fill in the sides with cobble and then the gravel on the bottom. So we want a nice cozy tavern, right? So in order to do that, we got to have some fireplaces. Before that, we need some chimneys. So on the back side of the tavern section here, we're going to be building the chimney section. You're going to make the first section 12 blocks high. Make sure it comes 2 blocks out. The next section is going to be 4 blocks high with stairs. As you can see, we're still kind of following the horizontal lines. And then this last line is going to be 14 blocks high. And then we're going to finish that up later on. So as you can see, that's going to be sort of the idea of what we're going to do there. Now we're going to go on the inside and we're going to do a little bit of work in here. We're going to fill in that little gap in between the chimney and the cellar. We're going to fill that in with some stone in order to fill that up, because that's all going to be tile, because you don't want there to be wood right in front of the fireplace. We're going to use brick as a facade on the front. That's going to make it look kind of nice. Later on, we'll add in some, well, maybe the next video, we're going to add in some extra detail to really make that look nice. Maybe an elk head or something up there would look good as well. On the top, we're going to add in those vents for the smoke to come out. And then on the bottom, we're going to add in a little bit of detail. As you can see right here, we just add in a few little bits and blobs like that. And that's going to support the foundation. We add a little bit of that cobble like that, the dark cobblestone, and I think that looks the dark slate in any case. So on this side, we're going to be making the fireplace for the kitchen and also for the tavern keeper's home. This side doesn't really matter, just kind of follow that. It's just a little bit shorter than the other one. And then we're going to be doing another chimney over here for the inn section where where all the guests would sleep. And maybe there would be some servants living in this building too, but anyway, that's besides the point. But again, we're going to be building a little fireplace here on this side. So in that little section, a little like a corner in between the inn and the tavern, we're just going to be building that up. It's going to be 4 blocks wide, and then you bring that all the way up. Again, you can do whatever kind of height you want to do with this. You can follow as closely as you want, but in terms of dimensions, just be creative. That's what I'm trying to encourage you guys to do, is be creative with how you're building and try to come up with something really unique. And like I said, I can't wait to see what you guys come up with, because I'm always very interested. On this side, we're going to be adding in just a tad bit of a stone foundation with a door. So as you can see, we're going to go ahead and build up the cobblestone or the slate stone here soon. There we go. And then there's the door right there. And then that sets the foundation for the entrance into the cellars. Finished the framing, we finished the cellar, and we finished the chimneys. So now we're going to lead straight into the flooring section, and also a little bit of texturing for the logs. So I don't like that it's all just those dark logs at this point. I really want to add in a little bit of extra texture. The texture is going to add in that little bit that it's just a little bit of texture value to the build. It's hardly going to be noticeable later on. You're not going to really notice it, but for the big picture, it just really has an interesting addition to the build. It just like I said, randomly, try not to make it static. Try not to make it like every other block, etc. Just be as random as you can with it, but make sure it's a full beam. Like, don't just like randomly put it in like in spots. Make sure it's a full beam. That's a pretty important. It's pretty important for that section. Is you want to make sure that you put the oak logs all in the beam. So now we're going to start working on the floors. So this is the front porch. That's the door that leads into the main hall. Make sure you have the stair blocks there. And then here on the front, we're going to have another porch that's in front of the inn, and that's going to have pretty much be like that. And in here, we're going to be using those fancy, I think these are called the oak table blocks that we use for the flooring in there. It's just a little bit of a different color than the normal oak. And then here on the balcony, we fill all those spaces in with the oak planks, and then we build those stairs down. We go ahead and fill in the kitchen section. That's what I'm doing right now. That's all going to be filled in with those oak planks. And then we're going to be fill in where the tavern keeper would live, right there. And then going over here into the inn, we're going to go ahead and fill all this in with oak planks. We also had neglected to add in some framing earlier in the videos, so I go ahead and add some of that in now. Again, it's pretty simple. You just follow the lines. I try to be as calculated with this build as I can. Versus being asymmetrical, I try to keep it as as easy to follow as I can, so it shouldn't be too difficult to reproduce what we just did there. So right here is the porches. We go ahead and fill those in, top and bottom tiers, and then we lead into here, and we're going to go ahead and fill this top section in with some oak planks. But as you can see, that's how we did the framing in there. But we go ahead and fill all this in. This is where the master suite is going to be for like maybe a very rich customer that comes and wants to have a nice bedroom. That's where they would stay. So anyways, that's the flooring section. I hope you guys are able to follow along pretty well so far. And let's lead on to the next part of the video. Now with the floors filled in, it's time to fill in the walls. So we're going to be using the white Tudor. That's going to be the main block that we're going to be using, but we're not going to be adding in the detailed Tudor at this point. We're just going to be adding in the plain white Tudor just to fill in the spaces that are going to be filled in with Tudor at this point. We're also going to be adding in the windows. As you can see on each of the top corners, you have a 3 tall window on each side. Up here, we're going to use the birch wood, and then this is going to be a vent for air, so it's going to work in conjunction with the cupola, which is in the top middle of this building, and that's going to be what's going to allow the air out. And also, it adds a nice little bit of detail, I think, using those blocks and such. I think it really has a nice look. So again, make sure you follow those designs there using the Tudor. We fill in the walls on the inside here. Again, you just want to follow the lines. That's really, again, all there is. You just want to follow the lines. On each of the corners there, where you can see there should be a two tall window right there. So now we're going to go ahead and fill in all these walls. So just go ahead and fill all those in. And again, remember, leave space. Actually, no, there's a door right there, but here in the corner, leave space for a window. That door right there leads out to that porch here on the back. So then we have some more windows there. And again, you just keep following the wall line, just filling in those spaces. So now we're going to head out to the side where the tavern keeper would live, and we're going to start filling in this space with the Tudor. First, we're going to start filling in the front, as you can see right out here. So just go ahead and start filling all that in. We're going to remember to leave spaces for the windows. It's just sort of randomized. There's really no specific places to put windows here. It's just if you want to put a window there, just go ahead. Again, creativity. Do what you want to do. Make this build your own. That's, again, a big idea. A block-by-block tutorial really just sort of confuses people because they know how to build it block by block, but how can they adjust it to become their own? That's the big thing. But yeah, so far in this build, the main aspects that I've been trying to portray is asymmetry. Make sure that you follow a fairly logical value in terms of shape. Now you can go diagonals and all that stuff. You can make the shape so much more interesting. There's so many options. But like I said, for this build, you try to make sure that it's calculated. I made sure that I followed some inspiration for this build. So like Pinterest is a great place to find inspiration for things of this sort. Just go ahead and just look up my Pinterest, for example, in the description below. And I have so many pins in there that you can check out and see just all the great things that you can draw inspiration from. So I would definitely suggest you go check that out. So we're going to be finishing up this section by filling in the walls in here, and then that's that. So it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and I hope you guys learned something. Alrighty, so now we're going to start working on the detailing for the tutor and such on the outside walls. So for this, we want to be logical with our placement of tutor. You want to make sure that the tutor framing is pointing in directions that are logical. You don't want them facing every which way, and you want to try to keep some clean spots, meaning that you want to try to keep some areas where you have the open tutor. Otherwise, it's just going to look like a messy, like a noisy mess. You don't want that, so just be careful with that. All the way along the roof edges, we're going to be using this design. As you can see, we're using the dark oak, the trap doors, and the spruce hoppers, so be sure you do that. Along the railings of those porches, we're going to be using those spruce railings, so be sure you use that. Also, I'm using those flicky bits. Some people suggest that that makes this whole build look somewhat, I guess, elven in a way, which it does in some aspects, but you know, without the curved roof and such things like that, I think it looks, you know, fairly medieval in its own way, but it's still fairly fantasy, and that's the idea. I don't want it to be like a purely medieval tavern, inn, or whatever. I want it to have its own juicy uniqueness, and I think that you guys can pretty well see that. So we're adding in little details here on the back porch. Again, if it's going too fast for you guys, this is what's very important, that you guys follow your own ideas. I want you to be unique with your build. I'm just here to give you some inspiration for how to build a tavern of this type. Now, of course, you can follow it if you want to. If you really want to go in depth and follow it to the letter, go ahead. All power to you if you can do it. But for the most part, I just want you to use this video for inspiration, to give you the general idea and shape of what I'm going for. So here we're adding in dormers here along all four sides, all four corners of the main tavern building. So you can go ahead and place those in if you want. They look pretty good in the end, but it's just using birch wood and such things like that. So do what you want. So we're adding in the roof edges there, and again along the roof and such, we're adding in the spruce wood with those spruce planks. That makes it look really nice. So now we're going to work on the tavern entrance. We make a nice little stairway leading down from where the tavern keeper would live. It leads down to the that little stone patio. Now we're working on the outside. As you can see, we have a little bay window there on the left, and then we finish up the roof there. That little bit of birch at the top really looks nice in my opinion. It has a nice little effect. And then here on the front, we add a little balcony, things like that, little bits of detail. And again, we're making sure that the Tudor framing is working together. We want to make sure that it all sort of is logical and has a nice look to it. Again, we add in the edging, and then there we go. So the general idea is there. You guys now can understand and see how this building is going to be turning out. And so let's move on to the next portion of the video and see what we can come up with. Before we start working on the actual roof, we're going to be working on this cupola/tower on the top. This is the air vent that's going to let the bad air out from inside the building. And as you can see, we're just adding little bits of detail there, here and there. It's just pretty simple. Just follow that exactly how I had built that. Then around here, we're going to be building the roof. As you can see, this lower section that we sort of build out, it's somewhat as like a porch. On the inside, we're going to be working on the roof here. So we're going to be using red clay. So just go ahead and just follow that all the way around. It's pretty simple. Just all you got to do is follow the lines again. Now we're using a little bit of brown clay as well. So you see above that bay window we just did there, we used a little bit of red or brown clay, brown roof tiles. And then we use the half slabs of the red clay to make a nice smooth transition there. So now we're going to be working on the actual roof of the inn here, and we're going to be building that up and come to the other side, and we built the same thing over here. It's all in twos. It's pretty simple. Again, follow the lines. I can't stress the importance or how simple that is. It's just, you know, all it is lines at this point. Just follow it, and in the end, it's all going to just turn out. Make sure you add an edge on this side over here. And then again, you just go ahead and follow those lines on this side. And then over here, we're going to be following the red and fill this whole section in right like that. So You can add extra dormers in here. You can add little details if you want. You can change the dormers up that we have now. All kinds of crazy things. There's possibilities galore that you can do at this point. You can just keep filling in and doing what you want to do. But if you, like I said, if you just want to follow what I'm doing, just fill in the lines. It all just kind of comes together at this point. The little difference here is you got to use the half slabs in order to make the roof over that little balcony right there. And then we use a little bit of dark oak to border that in. And then on the front here, we use brown clay. Again, something a little different. You know, sometimes we use brown clay, sometimes we use red clay. So maybe this was like a really old part of the building, and then that's why they used brown. Or maybe it's a new part of the building, that's why they used brown clay. It was a different architect or something. So anyways, that's the overall idea of that. Now we're gonna start adding in little details. Well, before that, we're gonna add the roof in right here for the cellar entrance, which leads down into the cellars, of course, hence the cellar entrance. So detail time. So what I do here is I give a semi-curve to the roof. It's a very slight curve. I start with half slabs and then I go down to the trap doors, and then I use the stair blocks. On the top, I use a intermittent pattern using those spruce planks. And then on top of that, I put the spruce anvils and I put a couple finials up there. I think it's a really neat design. It really looks kind of nice, and I think that you guys it might look good on your builds as well. So I use, again, stair blocks because we want to make the roof semi-smooth. We don't want it just to be block, block, block. We want to give it somewhat of a smooth look. So that's why we're adding in the stair blocks as such, in order to really smooth the roof out, make it so that it has a softer slant on the way up, as much as Minecraft can provide. Again, we add a little bit of that little curve in the roof using the slabs and the trapdoors and things like that. Again, the finials on the top, I really like that design. I really think that that's what really makes this build, is the top of the roof, the tips of the roof. And as you can see, we also put stair blocks up there in order to make those little holes, just to give it a little bit more of a fancy look. So anyways, that's the general idea of this building. I hope you guys were able to follow it pretty well. But if you think that this was good, now we're going to move this over onto some proper terrain, and we are going to make this thing really pop. Now, of course, you guys were probably building this on some terrain, but yeah, for me, I'm going to bring this over to a proper custom map, and we are going to make this thing awesome. And bam! So now we are on Darth Enigma's map, Indian Summer. You can find the link to the download in the description below. Make sure you give his map a diamond. If you want to build on it, it's there. So you got to use the Conquest Reforged mod in order to be fully compatible with the map. So anyways, we're going to start working on the road in front of here. I start by playing it out and getting the general idea. So we just sort of add some things in. At this point, this is just an inspirational video. I just want to give you ideas of what you can add for your tavern. Right here, I'm building a building that's somewhat like a shed, or maybe even a little horse barn, some kind of little area for maybe the upper class horses that they can live in there. Like that's where they can stay. And then we're making a lower class horse barn for like maybe the normal tavern goers, like just want to come and go. That's where they would leave their horses, right here in this this stable right there. And then we go ahead and build the road around, and then that's how that turns out. So at this point, I want to try to build a garden on the back side, but we need to flatten out this terrain and give it a little bit more shape. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and make somewhat of a little plateau, and then we're going to stone wall it all the way around instead of making it a soft incline. So that's what I do. At this point, I want to make like a semi-little medieval garden. That's how they would usually do them, is they'd make them into very specified plots. Not usually, it wouldn't be just random stuff. Like even in medieval times, it was pretty well done. So like we have crops like wheat, sweetgrass, strawberries, peas, maybe a little bit of rice, not rice, but hemp, some grapes, and then some carrots. That's kind of what the crops we did there. We had a little bit of a fence and border around that garden, also around the wall on the outside. Here we're building some chicken coops. I thought it'd be a good idea to have some eggs, because usually eggs make a pretty good like breakfast food, and it's a pretty good thing to have for a tavern, because hey, the guests would like to have something to eat. Here I'm building a little latrine. A latrine is basically a place where they would poo and do their thing. So that's what I'm building right there. I think that turns out pretty nice. Just a place where they can come right out, side onto the porch and then just do their thing right there. It's pretty simple and easy. It's like a little communal thing. You'll notice here at the bottom rim, I used those little wood fence pieces. That really looks nice in my opinion. I really think that has a neat effect to the base underneath there because there's no foundation underneath there, so we just use that. We make a little clothes washing area there. Over there, we make a little grindstone, like maybe they're trying to grind barley and such like that. I make the road that leads down here, make a little apiary, meaning like a little bee farm back there. Maybe they want to put honey into their beer. That right hole that was right there in the corner, that's the gong pit. That's where they could put their poo from the latrine. And also like the poo from the chicken coop. That's a pig pen, pigsty that we're making. And then as you can see back here, that's where the horses would be kept in that little pen with the water trough right there. So that's the general idea, and I hope you guys are getting a pretty good idea. So we're going to head on with the video here. So that's pretty much the idea of how you build a tavern/inn. We go ahead and finish off that fishing dock there, and that's pretty much it. If you guys want to watch the interior portion of this tavern, you can go ahead and follow the link in the description below, and that'll lead you straight over to the video where you can learn how I build the interior of this thing, which I think turns out rather nice. So be sure you go check that out. Also, if you like this video, guys, don't forget to hit that like button, comment below, tell me suggestions for future tutorials, and subscribe for more content. Also, if you guys are interested in the Conquest Reforged mod, that there is a server for that. You can go ahead and come join us on the server. The link to that is in the description below. Again, all this is in the description. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, all that good stuff. And what I really want to see is what you guys end up having built using this tutorial, and maybe you can show me your the designs that you ended up with. So thank you guys for watching. I look forward to seeing you on the future videos and future content. So have a great day or night wherever you're from. Until the next one, bye-bye.